Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the final talk of the winter series of the year, and well, just look outside. Even Lady Weather is in quite a good mood at the moment. There we go. Last talk is being given by Andrew here. Andrew is the current president. I've got that wrong in the past. Of the vintage
glider.
And without further ado, he's going to be talking about Harald Penrose, who was quite a remarkable man. And without further ado, I'll pass over to yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Glyn. Thank you, all of you who have made the journey to come. And it's lovely to see such a dauntingly huge audience. But anyway, I was hoping there were millions of people then, and I could say, hands up those who haven't heard of Harald Penrose, and maybe, but I expect you've all heard of. Yeah, we are then. Anyway, so here he is. The funny things, I'd not come across many pictures of him actually, but he has this sort of faraway look. Just a minute. Oh, yeah. Now I don't suppose does anyone recognise this building? Manresa Road. This is Chelsea Public Library, and so that is where I first came across Harald Penrose, because I devoured every single book in the aviation section. Can you remember, it was at number 128 or so? Do you remember anyone with public libraries? Do you remember the code number? Oh, it's something like that. Anyway, and so Harald Penrose. Just a minute. What do I press? Let's try this. Down arrow. Yeah. The name is Cornish, and yachting comes into this story a bit, because Harald Penrose was a polymath, and he seemed to be able to do anything, including designing yachts. And there is a yacht company in Cornwall, which I screenshotted this. You couldn't take the pictures off their website, but they are sail makers, and I suppose there is a connection. Otto Lilienthal said, to design an aircraft is nothing, to build it is something, to fly it is everything. And of course Penrose did all of those plus much more. Yes, he was part of a wonderful tradition of British test pilots. I've just picked some sort of at random. You will all know the names. Alex Henshaw, who did that incredible Mugul flight to Cape Town. He flew every Spitfire that was built at what's the place called? Castle Bromwich. Yeah. Geoffrey de Havilland flew all those types. Neville Duke, he flew here. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
No, I'm thinking of Peter Twiss. Peter Twiss, yes, right. Neville Duke, Winkle Brown, who flew everything, and these three: Winkle Brown, Tony Blackman, who flew every Vulcan, and John Farley, who I think must have flown every Harrier. I met all of those at the Shoreham Airport Society, where I'm actually doing the same talk on Wednesday, and I was very privileged to meet Winkle Brown, and Peter Twiss, who I didn't meet, who did. He went to Shoreham as well, but I missed that. But he flew here, didn't he? Is that right? Yeah. Did Harald Penrose come here? No, I think not. Anyway, these were these great men. There's a picture of him on the left in the diabolical pterodactyl. With that, so that's him in the cockpit, of course. Then we see Hill, the designer, in the Trilby hat. Right, is that a Trilby hat? No, is it? I'm not very good at hats. Whatever hat that is. And then that's Teddy Petter, bald, there. And then that picture. There's a little website. That is Penrose on the right, and his son Ian on the left. And I tried to get in touch with Ian, because there's a Westland sort of old boys club, and I wrote to them and I said, is there any chance you can put me in touch with Ian Penrose, the son? But I got no reply. Anyway, He was born in this incredibly modest house, which is in Hereford. And here's a little paradox. According to Wikipedia, he was born in that house, 103 Park Street, in 1904, but the plaque says 1906. Anyway, anyway, and also should have a blue plaque, shouldn't it? But of course it won't. Incidentally, I also looked up the name of Penrose, and there's a Wikipedia page of famous Penroses. They're just about 25 jazz musicians, sort of MPs. Is Harald Penrose there? No, he isn't. Not famous enough. But there you go. Anyway, his early school days weren't exactly idyllic, because his housemaster tells Harold, "Your dad will be disappointed in you. You're not top in all of your subjects," as he, the father, was head boy at Truro College, and he expects you to do the same. In his books, he doesn't really make any mention of his father after that. Anyway, he had the aviation bug, and this lovely drawing, wouldn't it be lovely to be able to draw like that, is from this edition of his book. The drawings in it, I think they're all lovely, and they're by an artist called Keith Shackleton, another famous name. And then, yes, so Shackleton had drawn that 504, and here is a photograph of the same, which just popped up. So his first flight was in an Avro 504, as so many people, and the pilot was none other than Alan Cobham, later Sir Alan Cobham, who founded Flight Refuelling, which was recently sort of sold off or something, wasn't it? Yeah. But Flight Refuelling stayed in business, but like Martin Baker, for years and years, didn't they?
Yeah, the company that still does the flight refuelling is the offshoot's called Draka now, that does the flying.
Yeah.
Flight refuelling is still around.
Yeah. Oh yes, and then here, the flight refuelling. Don't worry, we'll get to the gliding bit eventually, but this is just sort of filling in the background. So what and then Penrose, he decided he really wanted to go into aviation, and he sort of went around various companies trying to get an apprenticeship, and he tried Handley Page, and there is Frederick, who has his staring eyes, which used to terrify everybody, I believe. But he didn't get a job there, and he then tried de Havilland, and that didn't quite work out. And but he still was a huge admirer of the de Havilland company as a whole. On the left, we see Captain Hubert Broad, and that's Geoffrey de Havilland. And yes, in those days there were giants. In those days. Harold eventually got a job at Westland, not in a junior capacity, and I was just saying that one of their products then was the widgeon, and that duck is actually a widgeon. I suppose, does anyone know? Have we got any ornithologists here? Yeah. I suppose we've all must have seen widgeons maybe at the park, but we just called them ducks. But anyway, that's the widgeon. And that was the sort of thing that they were building successfully then. But they then got Westland built ever more bizarre aircraft actually in the 30s. There's a widgeon. And then he has a near-death experience flying this monstrosity, which I think looks like something from Russia, doesn't it? This was the PV-7, and it was a bit like Monty Python. He's up at it's at Martlesham Heath, and he's been told to do some sort of terminal velocity dives in this monstrosity, and someone comes rushing, he's taken off, and a motorcyclist or someone comes rushing up with a telegram saying, "Don't do the flight, it's not safe," but he'd taken off by then and there was no radio. And so he does this VNE dive, and the thing breaks up, a wing comes off, so he bails out, and he just escapes. He describes it in great detail. I'm just including this. Now, yes, what aeroplane is this?
Manchester.
No.
No, it's a de Havilland Moth Minor.
Well done, Will's got it. I did have it in, but I took it out. I thought I'd just test you. So DH94 Moth Minor. You know, we all know that if an aeroplane looks right, it flies right. And you think, what could possibly go wrong with a thing like that? Well, it jolly well did. And this didn't involve Penrose. I'm just putting this in just to show you how blooming dangerous test flying was in those days. I'll sit down and read it. So this is 1939. They go up in the Moth Minor prototype. It's a benign-looking aeroplane. They're going to do spins. They go up to 8,000 feet. John Cunningham and Geoffrey de Havilland, what top names. They go into a spin, left hand, do 8 turns and recover nicely. They climb back up to 8,000 feet, do a right-hand spin. The engine coughed and stopped. The nose suddenly reared up and the Moth Minor went into a flat spin. And it's quite funny now, after a few turns, Geoffrey spoke through the Gosport tube to tell John that he was getting no response from the controls. Cunningham tried his controls but got no response and suggested they jump. Cunningham climbed out and, standing on the wing, watched Geoffrey get out. They then jumped free, their chutes opened, and the thing then goes down. Then the engine then starts, but it still crashes. But it's just to show you how dangerous test flying was in a harmless. But de Havilland aircraft have a bit of a propensity for spinning, don't they? Why is that? Because Tiger Moth and Chipmunk and this thing all had to have those things called strakes put in front. Perhaps Will could.
I don't know. It was a requirement from the CAA test program, wasn't it? And I don't know exactly why they asked for it.
Yes.
Spin strakes on a Tiger were only really needed when you had the bomb racks on.
Really? Oh, thank you. Right. Okay.
You got the extra momentum of the bomb.
But remember the Dutch. You know what the Dutch are like. They had to bugger around with the Tiger Moth and give it a great big triangular fin, didn't they?
They didn't have to. Only because
well, they can't help themselves. Yes.
The last test was a spot landing competition.
Oh well. Okay.
People kept ruddering them round to try and spot land them and spun them off.
Right.
So the Dutch insisted on that ridiculous great triangular tail.
Yes. They're always doing that. Anyway, back to Westland and their weird aircraft. This was the Pterodactyl Mark V, which was completely pointless. And we can't blame poor Petter. Petter was the chief designer, and you can sort of see his personality from this. He was a very prickly person, but he was very, very clever. Penrose had great respect for his cleverness. He had no interest in actual flying, in which he was rather like Barnes Wallis, who couldn't be bothered with, Tiger Moth and going for a flight, that sort of thing. But Petter, as we know, later designed the greatest British post-war aircraft, the Lightning. That is the only British, is incredible, the only British truly supersonic aeroplane, isn't it? And the Canberra and the Gnat. And he then gave up aviation altogether and went to Switzerland to study religion. But very sadly, he died of, I think, a stomach ulcer or something awful like that. Anyway, this is Petter. But so Petter had to, Penrose had to work with Petter most of his life. He had to get on with him. Petter, of course, come from the name of Petter engines, stationary engines and such like, very collectible. And I've got news for you. This bargain is on eBay as we speak. It is currently going. Bids starting at 100 and something, or buy it now for 200, and it's a dumper truck with a Petter engine. So there we are. Aren't you glad you came? Anyway, obviously the outstandingly well-known Westland aeroplane of the era was the weird Lysander, which was an obsolete concept because it was an artillery spotting plane, but it rivaled unexpectedly as ferrying agents into France, etc. And Willie Hackett here has flown the Lysander, and isn't that amazing? And it is a very strange aeroplane. Also very complicated. Look, it's all got tons of engineering in it. And look at this. This is a picture from Penrose's book. This is a view of the undercarriage. I mean, if you can work that out. And at the Shuttleworth, you can see an undercarriage beam. It's a great big hairpin-like thing, isn't it? And that's just part of the undercarriage. But I can't help thinking that much of what the Lysander could do could be done with much simpler things like this Taylorcraft Oster or even the Piper Cub. Anyway, but now, getting back to Westland, and these were all the aircraft which Penrose had to test, we then come to what's a sad story of the Whirlwind, which could have been a fantastic, I mean, a war-changing aircraft, but for some bizarre reason they gave it these Peregrine engines and not Merlins. Why? I don't know why. One patient I had was the Reverend George Wood, and he's dead now, but he flew Typhoons and Whirlwinds. He loved the Whirlwind. He said it was terrific, easy to fly, the engines being close in, you didn't need to be terribly clever at single engine flying, and he loved it. Now, what is the next one I'm going to show you?
Welkin. Never seen that.
Welkin. Welkin, yes, the Welkin was like a sort of high altitude whirlwind, and this was pressurized. That's actually Penrose in the Welkin, and that's why it's got a very complicated looking cockpit, because it's pressurized, and there's a bit more. So it's a pressurized high altitude interceptor, and it was then the world's heaviest two-seater, and now with yet another Penrose could fly that up to, I think, 45,000 feet. And the purpose of it was to intercept occasional high-altitude German raiders, but these raiders then fizzled out and they sort of dropped the whole project. But I can't help putting this in, which is far removed from Penrose. I'd never seen this one before. This is and I can't do umlauts, this is the Hutter HU-211, which was a similar sort of concept. Though this actually never flew because there were two prototypes and it got destroyed in an Allied bombing raid, but it just had to put that in. So that's a Hutter design. You can see it's got sailplane wings. Anyway, what happened next? Oh yes, then the war sort of comes to an end, and then I suppose during the war, Westland had already got started on this Fleet Air Arm fighter, the Wyvern, which went through a protracted development and was a test pilot's nightmare. Two or three of Penrose's colleagues were killed in these, because when the turboprop engine stopped, that you had that massive air brake in front with the 8 propeller blades, and it would just drop out of the sky. Penrose describes how he had a very, very close shave in this as well, when he landed between concrete blocks on the runway. Anyway, so that was the last fixed wing aircraft that Penrose flew for Westland. But then, because he was such an adaptable person, then of course it was all helicopters, and Westland did very well with this amazing series of Sikorsky designs, which I think are very, very handsome looking aircraft. Don't you agree? That's the Dragonfly S-51 on the left. I remember seeing the Duke of Edinburgh arriving in one of those in 1954 at Rothamsted, which is a sort of horticultural institute in Harpenden, 1954. And I think probably Duke of Edinburgh flying it, probably. And then that's the Sea King. Okay. It's a shame that Shrimpton isn't here, because Margaret Shrimpton, our former editor of the magazine, was company secretary of Westland, so she may well have known Penrose, come to think of it. And then never one to be deterred by new technology. Penrose, I've got to finish in under an hour, but we've used a quarter of an hour so far. Leapt into the hovercraft, and of course, yeah, there's another story. You see, there's so many strands to this story. And then after that, the part of Penrose's life which I find the most surprising, he then became the sales manager, I think, for the helicopter division, which, you know, basically that makes him a sort of arms dealer, doesn't it? You know, mixing with these horrible people. But he coped with all of that. And then eventually he retired. But now we're now getting to the gliding part. I'm now jumping us back to the 30s. I had to do that to finish his potted career. All the time he was designing boats in his spare time, and he says, this one, I'm sorry it's so fuzzy, it's a sort of paper picture from one of these. It was called Tinkerbell, led the way as being the first class of yachts to have high aspect ratio sails. So, and it does look nice and modern, and that's in the 30s. Anyway, we're now finally getting there. In about 1934, he decides to build a glider. He doesn't say why he decided to, but he just thought he would. And he would build it in his bedroom. And this is his words from this book. He called it a 30-pound fantasy of varnished spruce, thin plywood, and doped linen, 34-foot wingspan, a 3-piece wing. And here is a model which I've made, which sorry about the crudeness thereof, but anyway, a 3-piece wing with struts, which is very, very unusual, really, and a 90 square foot wing area, and it made it the smallest glider in the world, and all on a single sheet plan, which is here. Will Stoney kindly sent me. This is the low res plan from which you get from Scale Soaring. You can download, but it is rather low res. Will kindly sent me a high res version. Where did you get that from, Will?
It was from one of the model.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Airplane magazines.
Yeah.
So I've still got access to. I've still got the magazine. To
Yes.
run
Oh, I
copies
see.
of it.
Okay. But it had that funny tear across it, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a kink, basically where the centerfold of the magazine.
Oh, I see. Anyway, now I'm now going to bore you all. Well, I don't think it'll bore you, because we're going to go through a lot of these fine details of the why this glider design is so ingenious. It is minimalist. That's what it is, minimalist. Okay, head on. It can't get more simple than that. And incidentally, compare and contrast with the Hutter. The Hutter looks simple, but there's some very complicated bits of structure in it. This is much, much simpler. Here's a side view. Now you'll notice, as I noticed when building it, everything goes on to former F2. The whole thing is like a model aircraft. Everything hangs on to former F2, and so you see you've got the strut mountings, which are Westland Widgeon tail skids units. You've got the wing struts go in here, and the wing attachment. It all goes onto that one former, and there's a subsidiary attachment at the back. I've just dropped a strut off, which for the wing. Actually, I'll come to in a moment. This plan shows nearly everything, but it shows no detail at all of how the wing attaches onto the fuselage. But I think it's just with a single pin, because you've got the struts. What else? Some words. Leading edges of wing and tail are clear doped, and there's a D box, you'll see. Mahogany ply sheeting to the fuselage, birch ply to the fin, ash skid, varnish struts. Here's the tail end. It's got this lovely big rudder with lots of deflection and a minimal fin. Oh yes, and you'll see in this little video in a moment that's sort of more or less authentic. That just goes on like that with a little pin through. What else have we got? Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Well, here's the wing D box with, it's all minimal, and so you've got just one web. I suppose you only need one because it's a D box, it wraps around, and a tiny little leading edge and some capping strips. This part I don't understand. Here's the wing strut attachment. I don't get it. It sort of just, I can't quite work it out, but anyway. There's the wing, yeah. Tailplane, an all moving tailplane, even more, so you can see this thing was so manoeuvrable. The ribs are just cut from ply with lightning holes. What else? Oh yes.
Back of the class.
Pardon?
We were just discussing that interesting picture of the strut connection.
Yes.
I'm trying to interpret the drawing, because it is completely perplexing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've looked at it. I can't make head or tail of it.
There's too many
Yes.
pins.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Right now we're getting to the cliff top flight. In the book, he takes a bit of poetic license because he says, Soaring Sea Quest is the chapter. He says, on a day of boisterous wind in 1936, I took my newly completed sailplane Pegasus to the Dorset Hills for her first flight. That is a blatant lie. It wasn't the first flight, and that would have been lunacy, because he had taken it up to Sutton Bank, where he entered in a little gliding competition. So there we are. So I'm, in fact, okay. Oh yes, here we are. Got it here. He went up. He drove it up on a little small canvas-covered trailer up to Sutton Bank. He did 5 flights, bungee launched, rigging. Oh yes, and there's that wing mounting. There is no detail whatsoever. Okay, and then the other thing which I just added in recently was the completely minimal hook. That's all you get, and that. Of course, he didn't do aero tows, but that does for auto tow, bungee, and winch. And so there must be a bit of a strong area here. Once again, you see, you've got his feet. The rudder is a rudder bar. It's just a bar. That's all it is. It's not a parallelogram or anything. So his feet, the front skid attachment, and the hook is all just collected together. And now there's a picture coming up now, which I find very interesting. Here he is. He looks like Caldert's Castle in the background, but it obviously isn't. And here's the glider. You can see how neatly the wing joins are compared to this model I built, which is about the same width, the gap. But there he's sitting in it. But what interests me very much, as of today, is that model. This model is the one that you got there on the wall in that hangar. Isn't it interesting? And that's a German model, and it's got a 3-piece wing, so I'm sure that is like that model. So in fact, don't want to downgrade Penrose's brilliance, but I think he was inspired by that model to build the Pegasus, actually. Do you know any detail about that model, Gary? No.
Don't know where it came from.
No. There's no plaque on the wall there. So I'm certain it's that model. So what he did was he scaled up the model. Now what comes next on the talk? Oh yes, it's a video. I'm not very good at this, but let's see if it goes. Now this is a YouTube clip called Airs and Graces. Oh good. Now is this going to go? Please go. Oh wait for this. Some adverts. I don't know how to get rid of them. What shall I do? Shall I do another? I've lost it. I might have to come back. No, so we'll go back. Be patient. What do I do? What do I press? Oh, I know. Oh, good. Here we are. Oh, right. Well, let's see. Hopefully these are. Sorry to the recorder. Perhaps you can edit it.
Did you want to put the sound on?
No, yeah, it's coming. But the sound. Just a minute. Wait a minute. I'll pause it.
No, switch it back on.
Just a minute. How do I get it with sound?
No, it's on the video itself.
Yeah, just a minute. It's on my. I think I got sound off on my thing.
No, it's on the video. That's on the YouTube video. That's sound off. It had a.
Oh well, look. Never mind. So here they are rigging.
No, the photographer wants it all. Okay. Sorry.
Look, they're the tailplane. The rudder dropped on. That will be Penrose. Now, he's got the right suit on. Oh, and you see a very interesting instrument. Oh, I can pause it, can't I? If I want. No, I can't. That thing that he caught. That's described as a wind gauge. Off we go.
Yes.
So there we are. He's at Kimmeridge, and now it'll stop in a moment. Okay, so click the good. He's at Kimmeridge, and now we're going to go through the flight. I'm afraid in rather a lot of detail. Anyone been to Kimmeridge? Hands up. Yeah. I went there first in 1958 with my auntie Muriel in her Austin 7, and it's an amazing place. And incidentally, we've got the early spring rally of the VGC at Dorset, which is Dorset Gliding Club, is only a few miles away. And Penrose goes through all the landmarks, and they've got the most wonderful names: Kimmeridge, Flowers Barrow, the Bindon, Brandy Bay, Warbarrow Bay, Gad, he calls it the Wall of Gad, Tyneham Valley, Arishmel, Rings Hill, Mute Rocks, he knows all of it, and so on. Lulworth Cove, anyone been to Lulworth Cove lately? Yeah. Durdledore, we know? Yeah. Then one you won't know probably, White Noath, and Noath actually is Old English for nose. And then Osmington, anyone been to Osmington? No. Oh, well, it's a charming pub there. And on his flight he makes his sort of emergency landing at Osmington. It's actually called Osmington Mills. Okay, let's see what we got. So I'm going to divide it into 5 sections. So he gets, and I think what I'm going to do is read some of his text. I'm not quite sure whether it'll work. Okay, so he gets launched exactly as we've seen. Okay. Bear with me a second. Well, basically, yes, foot by foot, the sailplane crept forward, steadily climbing. Presently, it was over 1,000 feet high. But then, so he thinks it's all going nicely. But then the sailplane begins to drop, and within a minute, half of our height had gone. And this is the way it goes. And then he comes to this amazing feature called the Wall of Gad. I mean, just imagine you're flying this fragile glider that you've only flown about 3 times. Along here, it just takes your breath away, doesn't it? Especially that you've once designed it and built it oneself. Then the next bit, if I can just do this is difficult. Yeah, he's now in real trouble. Abruptly, the tranquil moment fled. A succession of eddying bumps jerked me to reality. The variometer signals a red warning of danger. My only chance was to steer towards Mute Rocks, where the wind struck the coast at an angle. So he's actually soaring at rocks. There are the rocks. Can you imagine it? And then he manages somehow to find some lift, and then he gets past Lulworth Cove, Durdledore, and then he gets to White Noath or Nose, and he then encounters some incredibly strong lift, and he gets up to 2,700 feet and goes into cloud. And I think that he was in wave then. There's a southerly wind, and he then, so it's from 2,700 feet, he now feels he's got tons of height maybe to get to Weymouth, but no, the coastline goes like this. Suddenly, where's all the lift gone? And he has to, after a bit, it makes an emergency turn back to this little gully he's seen, which is Osmington, where the pub is, and he makes a landing. Now, the next part of the talk is, yes, a lovely painting by Turner. Isn't that good? I think it's absolutely brilliant. The next is another video. Was this going to work? All right, I got the arrow. Now this video has been put together meticulously by a lovely chap at Parham, a new member, and he's called. He's just a minute. It's come to me in a minute. Anyway, Sweet, Marty Sweet. He's a lovely chap, and he's done this on. First, he tried it on the what do you call it, the Condor, but the Condor landscaping is very clumsy, and on the Microsoft, it's much nicer. Let's see if this works. It only came out small. I don't know why. And so he's. No, it won't. I don't need to go bigger. I should say we're doing it in a T31, which is near enough. So can you see it? Pegasus. Yeah. Read it. Can I read it here? Brandy Bay promised safety with strong ridge lift. Gulls scattered as Pegasus rose above the wall of Gad. Flowers Bay provided plenty of lift. An easy glide over Arish Mell, which is another gully. In a matter of seconds, the tranquil moment fled. That's right. The only chance was to fly towards Mute Rocks. The shadow of Pegasus' wings touches the long south face of Bindon. We crossed Lulworth Cove, which has got a bit stretched out. After Lulworth Cove comes Durdle Door. After which the whole coast offered a buoyancy of upcurrents. He's very cleverly condensed the text, which does go on a bit. White Noth is coming up. White Noth provided the strongest lift of the journey. And then he tops out at... Oh, yes, yeah, and now he does something very clever. He's going into cloud. Oh, we're in cloud now. And there we are, come out of the cloud. A couple of miles past, Pegasus descended. The hope of taller cliffs ahead promised safety. That yes, I'll reword that slightly. But Pegasus is sinking rapidly. And now he's looking round. This is very clever. He's looking, what am I going to do? Pegasus is uncomfortably low. He now makes he has to make an emergency turn away towards the sea. There he is. He makes this 270-degree turn because he's just seen the gully with Osmington and the pub and a little field. In 20 racing seconds, Osmington Mills came into view, and a field next to the inn provided a safe refuge. Isn't that nice? And as I'm so impressed. That's a chap who's never done a field landing. I thought it was perfect. Just a minute. What do we do now? Oh yeah. Okay. Now, so that's the end of that part. And now, sort of postscript is the replica built by dear John Lee. Who here knew John Lee? Yeah, some of us. Yeah, John Lee was an extraordinary chap, and he built how many? 7 gliders?
At least 7. About
7 gliders, half of them of his own design. He built what did he build? 2 Hutters, of which one of his is Nick Newton's one. Oh no, not yours. No. Will Stoney's one, of course. Sorry, Will Stoney's, and the other one is still flying currently in the United States. And he built the wings of the television Colditz replica, and he built various other bizarre ones. But he built this one, and this was a replica or semi-replica of the Pegasus. And here is his wonderfully domestic background. Now, John, he didn't stick that closely to the design, because he chose to do the wing in 3 pieces, and also he was quite a lot taller than Penrose, and so he had to give it a longer nose and a higher pylon. So it ended up looking a bit different. But anyway, here it is. Oh yes, and I forgot to say, he wanted to give it a higher performance wing, so he gave it a laminar flow section, and he doubled the number of ribs, from 13 per side to 26 per side. Now, when poor John died, which was 22 years ago, his collection of gliders all ended up in the Flixborough Museum, Norfolk and Suffolk Aviation Museum, and here it is. Oh no, sorry, I've jumped a bit. Yes, he was in touch with Penrose, and he wrote, "Dear John, congratulations. I was relieved to know that your initial tests were so satisfactory and promising. She certainly looks a great little sailplane, and the wing seems a splendid piece of work. I look forward to hearing more, and particularly, how she behaves in side slip. Best of luck, etc. Harold." Very nice. And there's John proudly with the Pegasus. And though he only flew it a few times, I think he didn't really, at the end, ultimately like it as much as the Hutter. But anyway, here it is at the Aviation Museum in Suffolk. And where's Gary? I did suggest to Gary that we should acquire it, but Gary wasn't keen on another thing. I think I've nearly at the end. We're going to look at that pliosaur monster, isn't it? This was recently excavated at Kimmeridge, and anyway, I hope that a few of you will come to the rally at Dorset, because it's obviously a great place. I think I've come to the end of my talk. Right. Anyway, would anyone like? Oh, now we've got John Delafield here, who's going to tell us a bit more about Penrose.
Some of you know me. In this book of mine there's a picture of Harald Penrose. Now, as a young lad of 14, my father, who was Royal Navy, was an avid sailor. So I hadn't discovered gliding then. So we had to go sailing. On this occasion, it was a family holiday. We were based at Emsworth, just down the road from here. We sailed out into the Solent. He seemed to be fearless, but sailing gale force winds that I found terrifying. And we'd go back to Emsworth and stay in the sailing club. I was 14 at the time, and this night we were put in us sharing with this gentleman. I had no idea. I'm bad on names anyway, so I didn't know his name then. And I was a keen model at the time. The only prize I ever got at school was a best product of leisure activity. It was a 12-foot wingspan, a radio control glider.
That was huge in those days.
Yes.
Yeah.
I took up real gliding after that. Anyway, this gentleman, I woke up often, right, and I was awake before him. I had my Aero Modeler magazine there, and Harald Penrose said, "Oh, nice to see you. You're John, are you?" I said, yes. He said, "Well, tell me about these aeroplanes." So I told him all about the aeroplanes, all I knew, how they flew, how you flew them and such like. And he never said a word. He was absolutely fascinating. Went sailing for that day, came back, and at reception was a little message on the card. "Dear John, lovely meeting you, in hearing all your ideas about flight and flying. If you're ever at Yeovil, let me know and we'll go flying together." And I did, age 14, in an Oster.
Oh, lovely.
How about that for a story?
Oh, well done. Thank you very much. Great. Lovely. And Willie Hackett has got a copy of
Yes,
Penrose's book, haven't you?
yes.
But not here, but
No, no, no.
signed by the great man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, in preparing this talk, I've just come to realise what an incredibly talented person he was.
Yeah.
The people like that don't exist anymore, do they? I don't think. Anyway, what do you think? Right. But what about us getting hold of that Pegasus replica?
Well, do you think we should have it here?
Will
The museum give it to us?
Yes. You wouldn't have to pay for it, or maybe a bit of pocket money. Will
We
feels
don't
that we
buy
should.
things.
No.
We don't buy anything.
No. Well, I don't think they want it. Though, what do you think, Will?
The Pegasus up at the Brixton Museum.
Yes, I'm talking about that.
Well, it probably needs to be rescued because
Yeah.
it is apparently there's a leaking roof and
Is
it's
it?
going to.
Well, catch me after I've had a couple of beers and I'll say yes.
Oh, all right, okay, that's a deal. Right, okay, well, thank you all very much. Right,
You've done? So,
I've done, yep,
was that interesting?
right.
Now, I don't. Are you president or chairman? I never know what you.
Everybody gets it wrong. They think I'm the chairman of the
No,
British
I know-
Gliding
I know
Society
you're-
or something. Yes.
I know the
Yes.
ladies.
Yeah, I am president until.
You must be obeyed over there. I know
yes,
that, yes.
I'm president until a certain day in August.
And then you hand over to someone.
To somebody,
You don't-
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Someone can put themselves forward. For
They have.
Oh.
I think they have.
Okay. Good. Excellent.
Yeah, but it's we can reveal it's Marcus who does the.
Okay.
He's a great person. He
Right.
does the magazine.
Glenn, do you want to say a few words? I think this is the last talk.
For this year it is, and it's been a very successful series. I think it's 5 talks we've had.
Yeah.
And now, of course, we won't have any time because we'll be doing all this marvellous flying for the rest of the year until next winter comes along, and we'll have to think about another set of lectures.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well.
Anybody who's got an interest in talk would be very interested.
But I wish
Pleased
you
to
the
have
best of luck in terms of getting this glider at the museum. There is a glider up at the Windermere
Yeah.
Museum, the sailboat museum, and that is the original. It's the fuselage only of the Falcon, the water
Oh, yes.
Slingsby, and it dates back into the 30s. And when I heard that they were redoing the museum, I thought, they won't want that. And
Oh, yes, they do.
so I wrote to them on behalf of the GHC and said, well, we'd be very happy to take it off your hands. I couldn't really repeat their response. It was very rude.
It started at F, wasn't it? And ended with off. Yeah.
So anyhow, good luck with
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Glyn. Well, Gary said we don't want yet another replica, and I can see that point of view, but it's such an interesting one, I think, and very small. Well, small, it won't take up any
Perhaps I
room.
could just add something before
Yes.
Andrew finishes. That you were starting your talk with an early quote saying that it was one thing to
Oh, yes.
an aeroplane, it was another thing to
Yes,
build it, and then the third thing was to fly it.
to fly it.
And there's nobody like that anymore. But could you explain yourself? Because I seem to remember you were out on the Perry track here.
Years ago.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what-
yes.
Oh,
Yes,
that was a few
you've
years
called
ago.
me out. Yeah.
And that's when I first met you.
Yes.
I named you the Mad Birdman of
Yes.
Eastbourne.
Yeah,
Because you used to throw yourself off the pier, didn't you?
that's the
A lot of people
greatest.
don't know that here.
It's a tragedy of my life.
Yes.
No, because that the one that I built 2 of these things. No, actually 3. Come to think of it. But I think the better one was the second one that I built, and that was a canard, and I gave it a massive foreplane, but the idea. I'm talking about this business of jumping off the pier at Worthing, as it was. Yeah, Worthing. Yeah. Anyway, and it's a bit of a long story, but and the second one, which had a whopping great wing area. I was with that one. I was able to give a little run and then jump on it and go off.
How far did you go, Andrew?
About the length of this room. No.
It qualified as a flight.
Flight.
Yes.
It wasn't vertical.
No. But the thing was, no. The idea was it would have to dive. But the pier height was only 30 feet. It would dive
And pull out.
and pull out.
Of course it would.
And you see, but ultimately I never put a control stop on the elevator on this foreplane, and I think partly because I didn't get round to it, and partly because I think I wanted to have as much up elevator as possible, but I had far too much, and it stalled. And there's a lovely picture of me apparently in level flight. But you can see the elevator is up at about 25 degrees, and it just stalled and dropped like a leaf onto the sea.
Did you put it in your logbook?
No, I didn't. But anyway, then I built one. Then that year I realised that the hang glider people were doing so well. So I then decided to build something with a wing a bit like a hang glider. Oh yes, it was Tony. There was a wonderful now departed member called Tony Morph. Who remembers Tony Morph? He was such an intense person, wasn't he? And he was very, very physical. He was a cross-country skier, and when we were having the rallies at Perham, Tony said to me, Andrew, he said, there's only one way you can make this work. You've got to fling yourself on the glider and transfer the energy to it. And I'm so suggestible. I thought, okay, that's a good idea, and that's what I did. But
how far did you get that time?
That was the one that you saw.
Yeah,
well,
yes.
Well, that was also even worse. It was vertical. But that couldn't work, and that was the only time it was frightening. I had to fling myself on this bloody thing, and and down it went.
You make 30 feet sound like a very low height. To actually 30 feet into the sea, surrounded by tangles.
Yeah. That's right. And that one I built mostly out of metal. I thought that would stand up to the better than wood. But of course, that's not the point. All the covering comes off instantly anyway, because it was.
Terrific.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well done.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right.
This man is totally mad. He is. Anyway, well done.
Right. Well, thank you all for coming. Daniel come hundreds of miles from. Haven't you, from Dunstable or somewhere? Yeah, fantastic. And thank you very much, John. Thank you, Willie. And it's all been. I'm so glad I did it. Yeah, I'm doing it again at Shoreham. Yeah.
I can get there.
Oh well.
The bar's open.
Yeah. How do I get this on?